Third down and 20.
Hey everyone, what's happening? Welcome back to the 3rd and 20 Dynasty Podcast, Season 2, Episode 2. We are without Lounis. It's just Jake, Frank, and myself today. Frank found the paper. If you're watching us on YouTube, thanks.
Hey, it's not just a paper, it's laminated. This is high quality stuff.
Right. It's almost as high quality as your drawing of Lounis if you're watching us on 3rd and 20.
People
basically
pay good money for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially a photograph. That is my Twitter avatar. If we're looking on Twitter, Dynasty JT on Twitter. All right, enough blabbering though. Let's get into it. We have a little bit of a different episode where we're going to talk about the value of the running back position. Then we'll break down some news and notes of the preseason. Week 1 preseason in the books. Only 2 more weeks left for preseason before the regular season. And then, we'll break down maybe if we have time the value of the tight end position and see what we got going on there. So with that being said, Frank, how about you kick us off with the value of the running back position?
All right. So running backs, to me, in Superflex Dynasty leagues are like the most volatile position to hold for multiple seasons. Not saying that receivers and other positions aren't volatile. It's just if you look at the running back rankings from 2 years ago, some of the guys at their draft positions, it almost seems laughable now how much they've risen or completely sunk off of a cliff in value and like insane amounts of value. Like obviously that happens for quarterbacks and receivers and tight ends. It's just the cliff of the running back when it hits, it is crazy. And now it also works for going up too, though, because when a running back, like a 3rd round pick, if they start playing and doing well, their value instantly shoots up huge amounts. Just look at Antonio Gibson, for example, even though he was like a 2nd round rookie pick. But you get the point. Like, they're just a volatile position to hold in dynasty leagues. Do you agree or disagree with that? Let's just get a baseline.
Yeah, I mean, look at the easiest example to point to, and I know injuries are involved, though, is look at the Rams backfield with Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson. Cam Akers was being drafted as a top 10 running back. There are people making a case that he was a top 5 dynasty running back to own. Then tears his Achilles, drops all the way down out of like the top 30, I think, at one point. And then Darrell Henderson shoots up. You're not going to find that in another position. Like, I mean, look at Cortland Sutton last year. He tore his ACL. Jerry Jeudy didn't go shooting up the list. Quarterback would probably be the only one that you can argue, but even then it's, Dak Prescott breaks his ankle. Ben DiNucci isn't all of a sudden becoming a highly coveted thing. Like, you're just bidding fab on him. Or Andy Dalton, you're trading 4ths. So, yeah, it is the most volatile position. It makes no-name people all of a sudden become very relevant. That's my take on it. It's super volatile.
Yeah. Well, Jake you brought up a point a couple episodes ago where you were saying, I mean, rookie quarterbacks, they could have a poor first year, right? I don't think Tua is the best example, but it is the most recent example of a quarterback going out and to a certain extent underperforming the expectations, at least compared to the peers drafted around him. I think we can all agree on that. He still has not lost like any value. Maybe he lost a smidge of value, but it's so small that it really isn't going to kill your dynasty team.
Correct. I mean, quarterbacks, they keep their value for at least probably the first 2 years. I mean, we saw in our, rebuild league, the orphan team that we took over, we were able to trade Sam Darnold and get a 1st round pick. I don't think that happens with any other position, especially not running backs. And like receivers, they also maintain value just because they're guys that can play longer. The average lifespan of a running back is not that long. Even the top ones, you can look at a guy like Todd Gurley, who was the running back 1 in dynasty leagues for about a season, and then next thing you know, he's out of the league. That just goes back to Frank's point of if you look at running back rankings, like 2 years ago, they're completely different, and they're the most volatile position, I think, of any position in fantasy football by far. I don't think it's even really close.
Well, see, I don't want to get too far into this because I'll circle back to this, but I don't necessarily hugely agree that the top running backs are always incredibly volatile. I think running backs in general can be, but it's not like there aren't running backs that don't last a long time. But we'll get into that argument later. I think you're right, though. Top running backs have a huge chance of completely falling out. So let's get into the startup draft first before we get into the value, because that's kind of the way we did it with the receivers. I figured we'll do it the same with the running backs. Because running backs are so incredibly volatile, I will never overpay for a running back in a startup draft, and I will always try to find good value picks for the running backs that I take. And this does not mean two things. It does not mean that I'm completely a zero RB kind of a guy. That's not what it means by find running backs for value and don't overpay for running backs. And it doesn't mean to necessarily avoid the tippy top running backs, because if you look at the RB1 in fantasy football has been a top 7 consensus redraft pick 4 of the last 5 years, right? So it's not necessarily rocket science in terms of who's going to be the top running back. I mean, the past 4 out of 5 years, and Todd Gurley was the other one that was not that 5th year, and he was still a top 2 round consensus pick. It's not like the fantasy community is terrible at pinpointing who the tippy top running backs are. It's mainly just injuries and some of those upside plays that are the problem. And I think that that's kind of getting into the last point, at least that I have, before we start really getting into a debate here. I just think that the overall rules do not get cute with the running back position. If you have that late first round, early second round turn of a startup, I'm not getting cute and being the guy last year that's drafting Miles Sanders. I think we could all at least learn from, why are we taking these insanely high risk running backs over the tippy top receivers, or like a top whatever receiver, or mainly the top quarterbacks, if like a Russell Wilson is on the board, or whoever, right? Or even maybe one of the top tight ends. I firmly believe in the startup draft, I'm so fine with landing a singular Aaron Jones in the 3rd or 4th round, or just that one stable, hey, I got him at a good value pick. I know that this guy's going to produce. How long he produces, I don't know. But I get a guy that I know at the end of the day, for the next season or two, is going to be an elite running back. And that's what I mean by draft running back for values and don't overpay. Drafting Christian McCaffrey at pick 7 is not overvaluing and overpaying for running. That's a phenomenal pick. He's a cheat code. It's just, am I going to draft Christian McCaffrey at pick 3? No shot, because I'd much rather just have the top probably 4 quarterbacks. At pick 5, I think that's when you get a good value on Christian McCaffrey, and that's how I treat running backs. Draft the elite guys, but don't overpay, because that's how you can really shoot yourself in the foot.
Yeah, I mean, the point that you touched on right there that I'd like to extend off is Christian McCaffrey is literally the only single running back that I feel confident about this year. And even then, it's I mean, I guess he can get hurt, but if you're looking at that with every player, every player can get hurt. Anyone can tear their ACL, anyone can break their leg. You don't know what's going to happen. But Christian McCaffrey, of all of those top running backs that are getting drafted, he's the only one that I feel confident is going to actually perform and play to his, expectations this year. And if you can get him at 7, that's fine. I kind of think that he will likely go higher in most Superflex leagues, which I'm not touching at that price. But then once you get beyond that, I have Jonathan Taylor in our league. I'm not taking Jonathan Taylor over the likes of Joe Burrow in a startup. Joe Burrow is probably the 7th, 8th quarterback, maybe even 9th. I want those quarterbacks. If I'm picking in the later end of the first round, I would love to get those quarterbacks at the 1-2 turn, and then go and search for my running backs or wide receivers, because there are some good upside guys in that, early 3rd, mid 3rd kind of thing. My guy that I always talk about, DeAndre Swift, has definitely fallen into that kind of area at this point. There are other young running backs. We have Javonte Williams is way lower than that. You could pick up a Javonte later on, and we saw how he looked in preseason. We'll touch on it later. I don't know how much longer he's going to be staying down there, especially with Melvin Gordon being injured too. I'm kind of tipping stuff here though. So, but with that though, it's very easy for me to go in startups and just quarterback 1-2. I have my cornerstone 2 pieces that I feel super confident about. And then, I know this is about the running back position, but I'm okay missing out on the likes of the Derrick Henrys and Alvin Kamara's and Dalvin Cooks for those later guys, just because I know what I have with me in Joe Burrow and Russell Wilson, for example.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just because us as a pod that we're very much on the quarterback 1-2 kind of strategy here. Just get your quarterbacks, get your base, get your foundation, set yourself up for the future, and you'll figure out everything later. I think that's how a lot of us approach a startup draft, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing because if you even like guys like David Montgomery and like guys along those lines where you can get them in rounds 4 through 6, something like that. Chris Carson, you could probably get in round 8, 9. Like those guys are going to be productive fantasy backs for the next 2 seasons, and you could figure it out as you go. But on the other hand, I know this isn't about quarterbacks and receivers. Those guys are almost harder to find, in my opinion, at least the top end ones, just because, and those guys last longer. So you can figure out the running backs as they're so volatile that they're going to be coming in and out, swapping in and out throughout the year. So you'll be able to figure it out as you go.
But here's the main point that I really like to drive with running backs, though, because JT, you brought up DeAndre Swift, which I think is actually a pretty good example, not for me personally, but for people in general. If you really think that DeAndre Swift is the best running back since sliced bread, and he has that elite level upside, and you think that his floor is way higher than it is priced right now, go ahead and draft him. If you value him as a first-round starter pick, drafting him in the second round is a good pick. I'm not saying to necessarily don't avoid all running backs. It's just if you start stacking running backs, because I did this in one league, in one Dynasty Superflex startup ever. Now, I'm not saying that it's a guaranteed fail. You can do it, and it has tons of upside. It's just the risk involved compared to just, to me, drafting safer earlier on. 4th round, 5th round, whatever. Draft for all the upside you want in your running backs. Javonte Williams is the dude I will be drafting if he's there in the 4th, because I've heard that. But I'm not going to be the dude that's like, Alvin, I'm going to win this year. Alvin Kamara pick 6. We're doing it, boys. He was the RB1 last year. No, this is a dynasty league. I'm building for 5 years outlook with my first 2 or 3 picks.
I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. You don't win in the first 2 rounds, but you could certainly lose.
Exactly.
Don't lose in the first 2 rounds, first 3 rounds even. Play it safer in those rounds. The rounds you hit the home runs are later on, and I think that's a lot of times, like Frank said, where you find your value picks. You find the guys that you like, and you target them, and you go get them. But in the early rounds, play it safe. Get your quarterbacks, get your receivers, guys that are going to last you longer. That's just my opinion on the way startups should go with running backs.
Here's the other thing with running backs. Real quick, sorry to cut you off, JT.
Mm-hmm.
I think that putting together we're putting together overall dynasty rankings. Spoiler alert. Now that I'm constructing my rankings, I personally think that running backs are also just overpriced. At least a lot of them, not all of them. There are definitely deals that you can get every year. But someone like David Montgomery might be a decent example. Maybe he's not the best because I like David Montgomery, but I don't love David Montgomery. The fact of the matter is that once the league gets going, there are players in the startup draft 30 to 20 picks after David Montgomery that you only really have to add a 2nd round pick to make that trade for a lot of owners in leagues. And that's the problem that I have with a lot of the running backs is why am I going to stack running backs when once the startup draft is over and we get 3 weeks into the season, I can trade someone that I took 3 rounds after him on top of a 2nd round pick and get him. That the value doesn't match up to me.
With those middle guys, I feel like, yeah. But, good luck trying to pry Antonio Gibson or Jonathan Taylor from the people that have them hands. Those guys are just they're young, very high potential running backs. They're on my team. I'm not trading them unless I'm getting massive overpay. So it is
yeah, but
give or take.
There's a lot of risk because that was Josh Jacobs. That was Miles Sanders. True. That was Joe Mixon.
I'm not saying it's a good strategy, but yeah.
You need to make a fine line in the sand between running backs that I think are insanely elite, Hall of Fame level potential, dudes that are just carries. Because these are the guys that can actually last a while. You look at data from Hall of Fame level running backs. I mean, they have 7-8 year careers like receivers do. It's just you need to really be confident that they are that level, or else you can massively take the bait. And like Jake said, instead of winning the startup draft, you instantly shoot yourself in the foot. Not saying that stacking running backs is impossible to win, and it's a great strategy if it pans out. You probably win a ton of value. But I just think that drafting the other positions, especially early, unless they are elite level running backs, is just much more profitable and consistent if you want to compete in every draft that you do. Let's move on from the startup. Actually, any last points on running backs in the startup?
No, the only thing is like a very popular one is like the 0 RB strategy. And I mean, I get it. I get that you're really stacking your other positions.
But I really don't mind it. I'm not.
You can't neglect running backs though. You can't.
I'm not saying. I personally prefer the what's like I've seen it called like the modified 0 running back strategy, where you take one of them, and then you can neglect them on and take a bunch of upside plays.
But if you're doing that,
how are you passing up on Javonte in the 5th? If you already took a running back in the 3rd and you see Javonte sitting there, juicy right in the 5th round, you got this elite level.
He's not going to be there for much longer.
He was earlier in the season. If you're just like, well, guess what? I'm doing modified 1R, 0 RB, expert level fantasy strats that I saw on Twitter. No shot. Give me receiver random ass motherfucker instead of a prime juicy RB1.
Javonte. I don't know where this came from.
I don't know where that came from either.
I don't know. Frank feels some kind of way about Javonte, but
the thing is though, like if you're doing a 0 RB, like you better make sure you go out and get the likes of Damian Harris in those later rounds, like James Conner. There's only a couple good, like I guess Chase Edmonds, if you like Chase Edmonds. I don't like Chase Edmonds. But there's only a couple there's only a couple like even appealing names in those later rounds.
No, if you are doing a legit 0 RB, you need two things. You need to walk your ass to the nearest whatever religion you are and go prayer for a little bit, and then you need to get a voodoo doll and start poking holes in all the starting running backs that you drafted the backups of. That's what you need to do.
Me and my little Najee Harris voodoo doll.
Is either you're
every Sunday morning.
Connors and James Robinsons, or you're just getting all the backups are just hitting because you're just pinching knees with your voodoo doll.
Obviously, if I'm not passing up on value, I think that's a mistake a lot of people make. Is they go in saying I'm going to do this, and then they don't let the draft change them. They just say they stick in their ways. Which if the draft's falling some kind of way, and you have Javonte sitting there in the 5th round. You take them. It's pretty obvious. Like that's the thing I think people let get to their head is they go in with the strategy. They go. I mean, I'm for it. We all love Javonte on this pod, and I think we'll hit on it in news and notes. So I don't want to go too far in, but he looked really good in week 1 of preseason. I know it's preseason, but he looked really good. Anyways, I don't think I have anything else to say.
I have one very last thing. Like, just don't fall into that ADP trap. I mean, my example is going to be Zeke Elliott, who, from what I've seen in startups, prior to Hard Knocks, where I think he's going to get a little bit of a Hard Knocks boost, but prior to Hard Knocks, he would fall. It would say like his ADP is like, I don't know, I'll just give a round number of like 20, and we could be at like pick 40, and he's not getting drafted, and you might be looking at Zeke, and you might be going, he's an ADP of 20. I'm picking him at 40. That's great value. But if you look at your actual big board that you made before the draft, he might be picked 50. So, just follow what your own consensus is. Don't go by the actual consensus, because then you're letting other people do the draft for you. You're letting people let those guys slide, and you're picking them up, and they might not actually be worth what you're picking them up at to you.
Yep, it's similar to what we said about rookie drafts. Do your research, be prepared, and know what you're doing. Don't let the draft play you. You got to be there and do your own thing.
Yeah, right. So moving on to our news and notes.
I have one last point. Yep. No. First off, we have to touch on after the startup draft, Mr. JT.
Oh, gotcha.
There's one more bullet point. Look at the doc, bro.
I was looking at the doc. I skipped ahead. My bad.
Crap, now I forgot what I was going to say. All right,
yeah, that's right.
Move on to
that's right.
advantages and disadvantages compared to wide receivers. This is the last bullet point we have on this section. Basically, because we did the value wide receivers last podcast, and now we're doing the value running backs, obviously. So we can talk about it a little bit after the startup draft. After the startup draft, I think that the value of running backs is actually relatively fair because after the startup draft, it seems like those veteran running backs become a lot more attainable, and you don't have to pour the insane amount of assets to get these guys. I think Derrick Henry might be a decent example in a lot of leagues. There are leagues right now that you could probably pick him up for a singular first round pick. Probably not most, but there probably is a league where that's happened. At least 3, I would say. You do a first and a second, and all of a sudden the wheels are really starting to turn for some owners, especially if they're not a competitor. But how do we value running backs compared to receivers? What are the advantages, disadvantages, and what do you think is more of like a carry for you guys?
So I think after the startup draft, running backs are kind of, to me, what separate those contending teams from the rebuilding teams, just because of what we touched on earlier in their volatility. Those contenders are willing to go out and pay for those elite level running backs that the Derrick Henrys of the world that may not be around in 2 or 3 years because they're going for the championship. So I think that is what's different to me than receivers, is where even if you're a contender, you can get away with having Odell and Jarvis Landry and guys in that category as your receiver 2 and 3, and maybe even flex play, like whatever it is to you. You can get away with that as a wide receiver because they're going to put up decent value. But if those running back slots don't meet, if you don't have at least one elite running back, you're likely not a contender. And that's just that. So I think running backs in general, those very top ones, are obviously priced accordingly, and they are going to cost you a lot to get. But that's what wins you championships. So.
Yeah, I also think that there's a stigma against drafting running backs in the startup draft, not in the startup draft, in the rookie draft when you're a rebuilding team, that I don't necessarily agree with, because yes, it's more risky, and running backs, for the most part, have a shorter shelf life than wide receivers. But I think that if you're going into a rookie draft and worrying about a guy's last snap of his career, that's just kind of a stupid thing to do. You guys picking what I'm putting down there, like you're worrying about how long a shelf life a guy has before he ever plays a snap, assuming no crazy injury history.
I understand what you're saying, but I definitely think that has to play in. Like, if you're a team that is not going to compete for 2 or 3 years, why are you taking a running back that in 2 or 3 years might be,
It's about the value, though.
Yeah, but
it's about how much risk you want to take on, because the upside play is crazy. If that running back pans out and becomes a top 5 dude, you could sell him for a ton.
Sure. In a Superflex league, though, my thing is, I'll take this year for an example. I mean, I can't prove it. We don't know what the actual running backs are going to do this year. But I'm passing on Najee Harris at a 105, 106 price. But when I'm looking at Javonte Williams at a 110 price, a 109, wherever he's going, a little bit later on, that is where I see the value, because I do value Javonte Williams significantly more than Najee Harris. So I'm not going to draft a Najee Harris right there. But, if I could trade back, pick up another first in 2022 on top of moving back 4 picks to then pick up the running back that I like better, like that's the value play I see.
But
as far as if you're going to play that running back.
I see what Frank's saying. You can kind of play the stonks here, where you take Najee Harris and you go, okay, I now have Najee Harris, and you wait till week 3, 4, 5, whatever it is, and he's going off for the Steelers, let's say. You could easily then flip him for twice the value of 105, whatever you took him at. So you can easily pick up some value, and I think that's what Frank's trying to say.
Yeah, I agree with both. I agree with you, JT, because I'm not – if there's a good quarterback or a insane receiver and my team is terrible – or obviously Kyle Pitts. But, like, if there is a legit monster there and then there's, like, a good running back, like, maybe you think Najee Harris is the shit. But, like, you can't argue with me that he's a better prospect than Kyle Pitts at their respective positions. Like, yeah, you take the best player available. But I'm more going off of do not completely avoid running backs if you're a rebuild team just because they're a running back. Like, you need anything that's good, and best player available is best player available. If that's a running back, it's a running back. Just take the risk. Anything else on running back? I guess I just like running backs because I feel like I can pick up good running backs after the league starts a lot of the time. I can find one in the draft, especially Superflex drafts with the quarterback craze that's going on. And quarterbacks obviously always go pretty high. Like JT said, I landed Javonte in a league at 111. And
that's so low.
And it was one of those leagues where the only running back I took really was Aaron Jones in the 4th round. I took a ton of receivers, and the receiver room is sick. Quarterback room is sick. We got some decent tight ends. And then I went out and traded a first for Josh Jacobs. So now I turned simply just Aaron Jones running back room into now I got Javonte. Now I got Josh Jacobs, a couple running backs that I like. You could probably pick up another running back with a 2nd round pick. Like, you can find and patch together running backs if you really need to. And a lot of times at a relatively fair price.
I guess my argument to that would be, I think it's much easier to do that than, say, tight end, where if you're looking for those elite tight ends, you're not going to get them, or quarterback. But I will say wide receiver feels way easier to just go out and get the likes of Antonio Brown and So you know what I'm saying?
There's just more wide receivers though, and that's why it gets easy. Because if you're trying to pick up, a wide receiver 3 flex play, that guy might be the 3rd receiver on his own team. So like, you can pick up those guys for 3rd round picks, 4th round picks, plus some fab, maybe some minor, prospects that you picked later on in last year's draft. Like, there's ways to get those guys just because they're so disposable, and there's just so many of them that the market is not as high for them as the case for some of these value play running backs.
Well, also, like, if we remember in the receivers video, I was all like, I like taking a ton of receivers and like high value ones because then you can just go around and then flip them for running backs.
Absolutely.
You can take CeeDee Lamb in the 3rd round of a startup draft. I think he's going 2nd round now. But let's just say, let's just bump back a month ago, and you picked up CeeDee Lamb in the 3rd round. I don't think you'd have a terribly difficult time trading him for an Antonio Gibson or trading him for one of the running backs that goes in the 2nd, like a Nick Chubb. There might be people that would take CeeDee Lamb over Nick Chubb straight up, especially if it's a rebuilding team.
Yeah.
I just think it's running backs. Obviously, the flashy young ones are always going to be expensive, but I really don't think it's as hard as people think it is to pivot into guys like Nick Chubb's, who are elite level running backs, or Aaron Jones's, or whatever's.
Sure, but I do think there is just for one last kind of thing. There is this kind of tier running backs that I feel like really gross about if I'm trying to like trade into him. I know you said like you like David Montgomery. He might be the only one that I'm like, okay. But you've got Chris Carson around there, Damian Harris, Ronald Jones, Leonard Fournette. These guys, I'm all like,
fuck them.
Yeah, I do. So I wouldn't recommend doing that.
But every single year, there's always a team that's going to be rebuilding that has old running backs. I mean, it's a cycle. It happens to all these teams. Like, maybe in some of your leagues, it's not the current scenario. But I can almost guarantee you that you fast forward to right when your season ends next year, there's a guy's team that didn't do as well as they thought it did. Maybe their Carson Wentz just shit it out, or they had a Deshaun Watson. Then they finished below average in the league. They have like pick 4, and you can go out and take their elite running back with draft capital.
Yeah.
Because that running back is all of a sudden like a Nick Chubb. He's only 3 years in the league. He's got a contract extension, but he's considered old and he's going to age poorly and all that. You can buy him if you need to. And then if you're JT, you still took your DeAndre Swift in round 3 of your startup. So you still had your upside play.
You can pat yourself on the back, everyone, for that one.
I know. Let's move on to news and notes.
All right. I'll kick us off. My sweet prince. My sweet prince. Rashad Bateman, my 106 in rookie drafts, injured, groin injury. I sent out a tweet about at Dynasty JT on Twitter where I don't know what the Ravens are doing, but 4 of their top wide receivers are injured. Like, I feel like that's not a coincidence. I feel like that's just bad practice if your top 4 are injured. Now, I hear it's something along the lines of like he was bad, like he was out with muscle tightness or whatnot, and he was battling that, and he had like some kind of core injury, and then that turned into the groin injury. But then you also have Sammy Watkins is hurt, Hollywood Brown's hurt. You drafted Tylan Wallace, who hasn't really done anything yet.
Did you just hear who you said is hurt?
Yeah, Sammy Watkins.
All of those guys are hurt every single year. This is nothing new.
Hollywood had the 1 foot injury.
And Sammy Watkins has been injured for 7 years. Like,
I don't know about that.
This is nothing new with these guys. Like, I understand it's very unfortunate for Rashad Bateman. We all liked him as a prospect, but I don't think this is something that's the Ravens' fault. I think this is just the guys they have. The Ravens. I think this is just the guys they have tend to just be injury-prone guys.
I don't know what you expect him to do about it. Maybe just fire the trainer.
He's out for the trainer's head right now.
Get some new sod on the practice
field. Am I wrong,
maybe?
or don't baseball teams tend to do that kind of frequently? Like you've got guys with hamstring injuries and whatnot, and baseball teams are like, "Yeah, see you, trainer." Like you're not keeping the guys healthy.
Stupid. What are they going to do to prevent the injuries?
I mean, the way you lift and everything, there are like certain. There's like a whole wacky subset of Twitter that they'll go and they'll watch these guys. They're lifting on their Instagram and stuff, and they'll be like, "Oh, he's doing wrong form here. He's teaching himself and training himself how to do an ACL tear." Like, there's a whole subset of those people. Yeah. I don't know how legit it is.
Those people need some help. That's all I'm gonna say.
The armchair lifters.
Yeah, exactly. I guess, like, in terms of back to the Ravens here, do you guys think this helps anyone, hurts anyone? No,
help
it
effect.
Hurts most of them.
Most of them are hurt.
Most of them hurt.
Yeah.
This is just a nonsense story to me. I'm not going to lower Rashad Bateman because of it.
No, I mean, it's going to be upsetting if he ends up on the PUP, yeah.
I don't think so.
They're saying he should be back by September. So
exactly.
He shouldn't be.
Yeah, he's not going to miss 6 weeks.
But I don't know. You never know with the setbacks and everything. And I feel like every time they say it, there's always a setback. But I will say the one person that should have helped was Tylan Wallace, and it sounds like he's been having like quiet practices and whatnot. This should be his time to step it up. And if he's not stepping it up, I'm getting really concerned if I have Tylan Wallace.
Listen, I'm not going to judge rookies off of camp reports and whatnot. I'm not even going to judge rookies a large part in their first half of the season. It's really like, okay, second half of the season, if a player's still not doing anything and they're not seeing the field at all, okay, then that might start to, raise some red flags. But until then, I'm going to be patient with a lot of these guys. There's a lot of dudes that, listen, they just take time to develop. It's a tough transition to the NFL. Let's not go crazy here. Do you guys want to move on?
Yeah.
So Eagles receivers are bait. Do not buy.
Yeah, thank God Lounis isn't here, because I know he'd be like, "Oh, guys, like Rager's gonna be so good this year. Like, I just can't believe I sold him. Like, why did I sell him? Look at him in practice. He's making one-hand catches like Odell."
He got him back actually, but yeah, with Rager and with Quez Watkins, it's the same thing. I keep plugging my Twitter. I put out another tweet where there's on the Rager video. It's the same thing as J.J. Arcega-Whiteside last year. I was like, look at J.J. Arcega-Whiteside making these one-hand catches. Oh, he's staying after practice to do drills. There's so many players that stay after practice to do drills. Like, it's not uncommon for players to do this. Like, most players stay after practice and they go on the jugs machine or they go run routes with the quarterback. Now, with that, I do think, last week was Brian Edwards. This week it's Jalen Rager and Quez Watkins. Like, there's definitely room to kind of pivot off these guys, which is what I would be doing, onto more reliable players, like the likes of an OBJ or Robert Woods. Like, if I could just add a little bit on top of that, now I don't know if Robert Woods is definitely a harder one to go and pivot to. I reckon he's valued a decent amount more. But these are the kind of guys that I think you could pivot these players who, more likely than not, aren't going to do anything, to those stable wide receiver guys that you can have that will definitely help carry your team.
All right, you want to hear a nice little succinct point about this?
Sure.
When's the last time the Eagles have had a wide receiver one? Like, never. And
Deshaun
It's gotta be
Jackson.
Jeremy.
It has to be Deshaun Jackson or
I was
Jeremy
gonna
Maclin.
go with Jeremy
It has to-
Maclin. I feel like
It
it's
has to be
Jeremy
one
Maclin.
of those guys.
Like, if there's going to be a wide receiver one, I might mute JT for this, but to me, it's going to be Devontae Smith. Like, okay, yeah, Rager might have a good year. I don't necessarily think that he can't have a good year, but I think his upside is heavily capped with the current scenario of the Eagles right now. Same thing with Quez Watkins. Yes, they could be good players. I actually like Sirianni and his development of wide receivers, but unless I'm a guy that I want to hold for 2+ seasons, I'm not going to be buying Rager and Marquez, and not Marquez. It's just Quez Watkins.
Just Quez.
Right? Yeah, it's just Quez. I'm not going to buy these guys expecting more than 700 yards.
My thing with this is
If that.
I'm gonna fall into the bait a little bit here, but when we talk about Jalen Hurts, you know, like, is Jalen Hurts carrying these two guys or whoever to wide receiver one seasons? I know we looked at, like, there's a lot of quarterbacks that don't crack quarterback one fantasy value that do produce multiple wide receiver ones on their team. But if I'm looking at Jalen Hurts, who, you know, for all intents and purposes, the Eagles are looking at a trade for Deshaun Watson, like, theoretically, in the rumor mill, like, you know, they're not convinced that Jalen Hurts is their guy. Like, am I going to then go out and buy Jalen Hurts? Jalen Hurts' wide receivers?
I think there's a better chance that the tight ends put up more than the wide receivers.
Absolutely.
Probably.
Again, it's just camp hype, but Zach Ertz has apparently looked pretty good. And I know he's older, and I know he's not. You know, he didn't have a great year, but he's still Zach Ertz. We've seen him do it before.
Yeah, he is someone that has done it.
You think about it from, like, an offensive coordinator's perspective. Having Ertz and Goddard is a nice competitive advantage at the tight end position.
You have two guys that are better than most.
Tight end
ones on a lot of teams.
I think Devonta Smith is like an alpha player. Like, if there's going to be a leader in that wide receiver room, I think it's going to be him. Like, dude, you got one-on-one across the board. Yeah, but here's the thing, JT. You have one-on-one across the board. Who are you throwing the ball to? You're not throwing it to freaking Rager. You're throwing it to Devontae Smith. I might even take Quez Watkins over a one-on-one compared to Rager.
To be honest, I don't trust Jalen Hurts to get it there. That's a whole nother story.
Come on. The quarterback doesn't hurt. Like, if Jalen Hurts can just throw for 3,000 yards, he can support one wide receiver one.
Yeah.
It just depends on the target distribution and all that bullshit.
Yeah, I would think Devontae Smith
It'd be unlikely, but
you're betting on Devontae Smith having a higher target distribution than he ever did at Alabama, which I don't think is going to happen. But especially with last year with Jalen Waddle injured, he still didn't put up that big of a target share. So
he put up fucking numbers.
Yeah, but not great target share. And now you want him to do that on a team with
hell yeah. I did draft him 10th overall. They better be throwing him the freaking ball, or else you're the new Raiders. All right, all rookie quarterbacks are going absolutely freaking bananas. I didn't watch a lot of the preseason games. All of a sudden, I open up Twitter and I see, dude, look at this Trey Lance throw. Oh my God, did you see Justin Fields throw it? Holy crap. Zach, if you take away the big plays, Zach Wilson is the best quarterback since Joe Namath. Like, that's not actually what someone said, but. And why did I pick Joe Namath? Yuck.
Well, Jets quarterback.
Jets, yeah. There you go.
Like, the only one that's not getting love is my boy Kellen Mond out here, all right?
He didn't look good. He didn't look good at all.
Neither did Jordan Love. I mean, Jordan Love's not a rookie, but, like, that was his first preseason and first action. Jordan Love also did not look good.
I thought, what's his name? I thought Trey Lance looked pretty good. Zach Wilson,
Wilson, baby. I like what I saw out of Zach Wilson.
I like what I saw out of Zach Wilson as well. But yeah, I think obviously all these guys were top 15 picks, so they're going to get hyped up. Every throw they make is going to be all over ESPN. It's going to be all over Twitter, and they're going to get blown up. We all knew this was going to happen, so I think we got to pump the brakes on a lot of these guys.
The odds are at least one, but probably more like 2 or 3 of them are not going to be starting quarterbacks in like 3 years.
Yeah.
So we got to figure out which of these guys aren't the guys. And I can't make any differentiation from just this one preseason game. But if you're looking on Twitter, everyone's trying to. They're all like, I told you Justin Fields was the guy. I told you Trey Lance was the one that you should be going out and getting. That's why I took him second overall to Trevor Lawrence.
Victory lapping is crazy.
Everyone blew up over the Trey Lance throw, the Justin Fields throw. They all, blew up over all of them. And honestly, they were mostly broken coverage, if we're going to be completely honest. So,
I mean, I did like Justin Fields, though. He did show some aggression. Like he brought down, ran, lowered his shoulder. I mean, I don't really love to see that in preseason, but it's better than him just, not caring or even like cowering. Like,
I mean, he wants to win the job. I think that's what he made clear with his first start. And I think he has a real shot to win the week 1 starting spot just because Andy Dalton, we know what Andy Dalton is. And I don't think it's going to hurt Justin Fields, progression. And if he's thrown in the fire right away, I really don't.
I think that Justin Fields is a quarterback that can absolutely look phenomenal on any given day. I just want to see it consistently out of him.
I mean that's the thing with any quarterback, though. You want to see consistency.
100%. But okay, so I want to move on. The quarterbacks have been so beaten to death.
Oh, hold on 1 second. I did just want to say, Andy Dalton, I think, will start against the Rams. They're just going to throw Andy Dalton, the red rifle, into the fire against the Rams, and then they're going to yank him for Justin Fields, and then it's going to be the new era. Just get him, send Andy Dalton away, and then it's Justin Fields' team. All right, sorry. Go ahead, Frank.
Javonte looks pretty good, apparently. I didn't watch.
He looked really, really good. Oh, my God. Like, I know it was preseason, but he was playing with the ones, and he was just going off, dude. He was stiff-arming people. He scored a touchdown on a nice run. This man was just showing every reason why we had him ranked the running back 1 in this class, and I'm very excited to see what he does coming into the season.
Yeah, no surprises there if you listen to the pod. We can move on to – I want to talk about another guy.
Here's our victory lap. Okay, go ahead.
I was not high on this guy. I mean, I wasn't high on him, but I liked him a little bit. And then his weight came out, and I was like, okay, well, there's small, and then there's what the shit happened last night small. And that's Tutu Atwell. And then I watched him that first preseason game, and then I remember why I liked this film. And then I see some of this data analytics crap on Twitter that Jake tweeted out. And it's like, dude, the more and more I look at Tutu Atwell, shout out Reese Morris, because I know Reese Morris, I'm pretty sure, liked Tutu Atwell. I like this guy. I bought a share of him in one of my leagues. I picked him up for a 3rd-round pick. I'm going to assume I'm a late 3rd because I'm good at fantasy. Yeah, pat on the back.
Well, that's my patented move. I'll allow you that one there, though.
So I had to pick up a share of him. I don't know if anyone else – I saw some people saying that he looked like crap. I don't know. I thought that he showed some real burst and some real potential.
I watched the game. He looked all right. The issue is, though, the Rams basically sat all their starters. So you have to wait for him to – he's not going to get beyond Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. Like, you have
100%.
to expect him to be that 3rd wide receiver, which,
I'm expecting
to be fair,
2nd or 3rd year breakout, though. That's what I'm buying him for.
At that price.
I buy him now so I can put him on the taxi,
Yeah, it's true.
I guess if you want to do that, that makes sense. But I was going to say, if you wait a year, 2 years, and he still hasn't done anything,
it's a 3rd-round pick at the end of the day.
I mean,
I think it's a late 3rd. That's why I had him valued at to begin with. So, like, I have 2 seconds still in that league and a 1st. So, I don't know. Like, I had to get 1 share of him. I think he's a really, really great taxi squad play. I thought, I was watching him. I understand they sat the starters. I understand all the bull crap and all the negatives around him, but it reminded me of his tape. I went back, looked over my scouting notes, and was like, dude, I think I was a little bit too harsh on him just because of the weight.
I definitely like him more than Van Jefferson. Sorry, Lounis, he's not here.
Dude, he's just electric. Like, he is too
good. Yeah,
he plays above his size too.
I mean, yeah, it's hard not to.
Yeah, you're right.
But speaking of guys that play above their size, another guy on this list, Rondale Moore, also looked pretty good. Looked like he was the same physical wide receiver that he was. He's someone that I would probably go and try and buy if I could.
Yeah, I would definitely try to buy Rondell
I
Moore.
saw
He looked good.
People were really going in on your boy Terrace Marshall, Mr. JT.
Well, what do you mean? Like they were attacking him for his 64-yard
they
game?
were saying that he's a beast.
Well, what's his name? Ray GQ, one of the top Devi Dynasty guys, was like, look at him get caught down. He got a 60-yard gain, and that's not how Terrace Marshall wins. Terrace Marshall is more of like a T. Higgins type player where he's going to out-physical you. He's not going to run down the sideline like a Tutu Atwell. Like, I don't know what Ray JQ was expecting.
I think that is – this is a quick aside. I think that players getting caught up in long-distance sprints, whether it's running backs or receivers, is the most, like, lazy scouting that you can possibly – I think it's just detrimental, to be honest, because I'm more worried about quickness and what happens within, like, the first 20, 30, 40 yards. Like, listen, unless you are a Tutu Atwell – or a Deshaun Jackson. If you're getting caught up then and you're like a blazer, okay, yeah, cause for concern. But Terrace Marshall is freaking massive. Like,
No.
I'm not going to worry about if some small-ass D-back was like, hell yeah, oh, sorry that me and my 4.3 340 caught up to you.
my thing with Terrace Marshall is going to be the quick JT pound back session is I have him as my 109. I think this is the year where he's going to be that third wide receiver. They're going to move him around. Then they're going to realize that they do have a very strong wide receiver in Terrace Marshall. Robbie Anderson's in a contract year. Yeah. They have way more other needs to fill than wide receiver. They'll let Robbie Anderson go, and it'll be the Terrace Marshall, DJ Moore show. And hopefully Sam Darnold's a good quarterback, but I'm not willing to bet on it. So it might be those two with a shiny new rookie quarterback, one of the Riddler, one of the Howells. Who knows? But I do think that might be.
Is there a second Howell?
There could be. You never know. That was my issue. We were talking on a different stream on a side note. Though a lot of the quarterback names sound similar this year, and it's tripping me up a lot.
Yeah. All right, next note. Antonio Gibson apparently is trying to the Washington football team is apparently trying to replicate Christian McCaffrey and Antonio Gibson according to
Brian Edwards is Terrell Owens. We've been over this next point.
Third-string quarterback Kyle Allen coming in from the top ropes with this team. We got fantasy Twitter in a little bit.
I'm really guilty of this. So I'm trying to go back and find it if I can't. Like there's someone on Twitter that I want to give credit to, but he said something along the lines of "There's something in the water in Washington," where it was like J.D. McKissick was like, "Yeah, Christian McCaffrey caught 100 passes in a season. Like I don't think I'll get that much, but I'll be close." Then there was something like Bryce Love. He played. He was a teammate with Christian McCaffrey at Stanford. Like he's learned a lot from him. Look out for Bryce Love. And there was even like Peyton Barber. They had something about him comparing him to Christian McCaffrey, or at least using him in the same sentence. So the Washington running backs getting compared to Christian McCaffrey is nothing new. I will say though, I really like Antonio Gibson. Like they used him a lot in the first preseason game too.
I like him too. He's a good player.
No one's the next.
Dude,
no one's Christian
sell him
McCaffrey.
In our league. It's just I'm not going to be able to get this crazy price that's happening on Twitter.
No one's Christian McCaffrey. Like you're not going to get that production for a while.
How is Antonio Gibson not a guaranteed second-round starter pick? Everything I ever see on Antonio Gibson, except for one dude that I actually kind of agree with, because I like Antonio Gibson, but I don't love him. Like, I think he's, like, better than CEH, but not by, like, a huge margin, though.
Oh, no, I'd take him comfortably over CEH.
Yeah, I think I would, but I don't think CEH is, like, 2 miles behind Gibson, which is what the sentiment seems to be right now. Maybe like a round or a round.
I mean, Gibson's like a consensus top 10 dynasty back right now, and I think that's just a little high for me.
I don't know.
I still like Dobbins more. I don't know what happened to all the Dobbins love.
Yeah, I would be with Frank. I would take Dobbins over him as well.
I like Dobbins, but I'd still rather Gibson over Dobbins. Like, I do think Gibson's going to be the one who's going to see way more volume than Dobbins. Like. And CEH. There's going to be a lot of Antonio Gibson.
Dobbins is so good. He's so good.
The one thing that's holding Antonio Gibson back is the team doesn't like 100% trust him on the passing. Like they're still tossing in J.D. McKissick
Dude, the only thing stopping Dobbins is the fact that they haven't given him 340 carries in the season.
Yeah, but I just
he's
don't
not
know
gonna
if
come
that's what they're gonna
close,
do.
though.
Yeah, I don't know if that's what Greg Roman's whole idea of
I
the
don't
offense
care.
is.
Dobbins is like, I'm a Steelers fan, and Dobbins is a beast, dude. This
I
guy
like
is a
Dobbins
beast.
too, but again, yeah, it's just kind of hard to.
He just needs to
envision
catch the
him with that
football
much.
and get better in the passing game because, like, for his skill set, like, and I don't remember how many balls he caught at Ohio State, but like, it's not like they never threw him the football. He
No,
just
he
kind
got
of
to do it.
sucked in the passing game. I'm scared that he's going to be one of those dudes. It's like he's just a forever jag as a pass catcher. Like, okay, maybe a flat route, like
Josh Jacobs.
but we could never
Yeah.
do anything that much crazier. Which is funny too, because he's so good in the red zone because he just has
He's
so
like
much
the
talent
most.
with the ball.
He's like one of the most efficient guys in the red zone.
His anytime touchdown score was fire.
Yeah, Dobbins was very
last
good.
season. All right, let's do some stock downs though.
Well,
JT,
all right.
I'll give this one to you because you put him on the dock. Najee and ETN, what do you have going on with them?
I just think they didn't show anything. Like I get the idea of the coaching staff throwing out James Robinson, and to be honest, I still like James Robinson more than consensus. Like he took such a huge drop. I think the Jaguars are going to use James Robinson in a part where he is like definitely fantasy relevant. So I think the idea is people are kind of drafting ETN a little too high. Najee Harris, we've now seen 2 games from, and other than him jumping over someone, which okay, like I haven't seen much from Najee Harris either. And none of these guys are really breaking these long runs or looking very good in between the tackles, other than our boy Javonte Williams.
Well, Najee's not going to break long. The thing I've been saying with Najee is his whole stock is going to depend on the passing game. Because I really don't think that Matt Canada is going to feed this dude the amount of carries that people are expecting. The amount of carries that people are expecting.
They just don't have the backfield depth to do that. I mean, to not do that, I'm saying. Like, who are you giving carries to? Kalen Ballage, Anthony McFarland?
Ridiculous. Anthony McFarland, second year, and now a system in
Canada
that he's been with. Benny Snell's just been hurt. Dude, Ballage is decent.
I like Kalen Ballage. He was fine on the Chargers.
And they're going to do a lot of bullshit. They're going to do those jet sweeps to Claypool and Deontay and Juju, and they're going to do shovel passes to my boy, the freaking Booth, and it's going to be freaking wild.
Well, but Twitter's throwing out the 300 number for Najee Harris. He's not getting it.
His work, Najee Harris, you want to be at his ceiling, a David Montgomery that gives you that 300 passing yards with like 5 passing touchdowns or receiving touchdowns. You get what I'm saying? Like that's his upside. You do not want Najee Harris. I just don't think is going to be that Le'Veon Bell or that Derrick Henry where they get 75% of the running back work. Matt Canada, the highest share. If you watch our Najee Harris video, highest share he gave to a running back in his entire offensive coordinator career is like 62%. And the baseline projection, I'm pretty sure, is 65% for Najee Harris. So if you're expecting 70+%, maybe, I mean, there's a chance it happens because, like, I mean, you saw the running back last year. They were pretty shit, but I just don't see it.
It might even happen, but this is a pass-first team. This is a Ben Roethlisberger, I'm going to go throw a team.
Speaking of risers, though, real quick, Deontay Johnson at camp, he's good. Deontay's good.
Oh, yeah. Wait, you went to training camp.
Deontay's a beast. He is really good.
I don't think this is anything new. The problem with him is if he can hold the ball.
He still cannot. His catch radius is so shit, and that's the one. And like, what's funny too is that he's gotten a lot better going vertically. But like, dude, if he has to reach out a yard in front of him to catch a slant pass, that sucker's hitting the ground. God forbid it's low because he can't catch that to save his life.
I can't buy into he seems like someone I would like to, but I just can't buy into Deontay
good,
Johnson.
He has so much talent.
All right. Some other stock down people. Michael Carter didn't really. They gave Ty Johnson a start with Tevin Coleman. I don't know if is Tevin Coleman injured or were they just letting him rest?
I think they rested him.
He's just a vet. He doesn't need.
He's worthy of
doesn't
being
need-
rested, I guess.
Apparently, and on Twitter had a fit over it. Like, crap, we've been undervaluing Tevin Coleman this whole time.
I don't know how much to read into that. Ty Johnson got the start. Michael Carter didn't really do a whole lot. 7 carries for 22 yards. I just haven't been a Michael Carter guy, so I don't know. I think I'm just confirming what I saw. You probably think otherwise, Frank.
Confirming some priors.
Yeah.
BD.
I mean, I liked not Tevin Coleman. I liked Michael Carter, the prospect, but this situation just is so muddy for me. People are expecting Michael Carter to come out and be the head of the committee, if we're going to call it that, immediately. And I just don't see it. I think this is going to be ride the hot hand. If it's him, it's him. If it's Tevin Coleman, if it's Ty Johnson, this backfield is going to be impossible to predict.
Dude, Michael Carter's been the same story all along. Do you think you can win 2 coin flips in a row? Because that's Michael Carter. Literally. You got like a 25% chance of him breaking out, and then if in that 25% chance, another 80% chance he's like an RB1 or 60% chance. According to our study that we did of the past running back drafted around him. So
but speaking of Michael Carter, I think he is going to be trapped in a backfield committee. I think it's going to be ugly. And I don't think that's what people predicted with the Dolphins, although we were kind of on that a little bit early. Like Myles Gaskin not running with the ones, Malcolm Brown getting looks.
But dude, I don't care because Myles Gaskin is like his work is in the passing game. I don't really care if you feed Myles Gaskin 1,000 carries. I want him to get his 5+ targets every game, his 7 targets every game, because that's how he makes his cash in these PPR leagues.
But is he going to get those?
He did last year.
But Malcolm Brown, although Malcolm Brown did not look good.
Dude, you're not throwing the ball to freaking Malcolm Brown.
He was the leading receiver for the Rams.
Malcolm Brown is going to be on the field in passing downs for his pass blocking ability. That's why he's going to be on the field during passing downs, and he's going to get the dump offs just when the play breaks down. Do I think he's a better receiver than Gaskin? In no world is he a better receiver than Gaskin, but he's a better pass blocker. But he's a better pass blocker, and I think that's what the Dolphins care about is keeping Tua upright.
He's going to eat into Myles Gaskin's target per game. And
dude, I'll tell you what, pass blocking is the most overrated things for running backs in the modern game.
How?
But coaches don't think so.
Coaches do not agree with that statement at all.
Yeah.
Look at Gio Bernard.
It's Gio Bernard. Okay, yeah, if you can't pass block to save your life, if you're freaking Arizona State Eno Benjamin, that's a different story. But if we look at running backs that struggle with pass pro early in their career, like, I remember articles, Christian McCaffrey, watch out, his pass pro is crap. You could develop pass pro. He became one of the top pass pro running backs in a year.
But do you think you're developing Myles Gaskin at this point into being
I think he can.
Pass pro?
He's been in the league for like 1 year. Who cares?
I guess. I don't know.
Okay, let's look at the running backs that are sick in pass pro, excluding Le'Veon Bell, which is like the knight in shining armor, on top of the fact that he was a nasty receiver. Okay, freaking the Detroit Lions backup running back, former Packers, Jamal Williams. Oh, yeah, I bet you were dying to have him on your fantasy teams. Malcolm Brown last year.
I'm not saying I want these guys on my fantasy
great
team.
For that entire season. Like,
right. We're not saying
if you look
at these guys.
Yeah, we don't want these guys. We're just saying they're going to be on the field. They're going they're going to be on the field to fucking block. They're on the field. They're the block. I don't want guys to block. If you want players that block, go ahead and draft your Nick Boyles. All right, go my guy, Frank. We are not saying we want them. We're saying they're going to be on the field, and therefore Myles Gaskin will not be. So therefore, Myles Gaskin.
So those extra, those targets that you think he's going to get, those 5 targets a game you're going to get, he's not going to get the opportunity to get those 5 targets a game because he's missing out on those 2 dump off passes that he can take off.
You guys are missing the equation here. Ready? There's 2 things that go into this.
You have a shiny whiteboard if you could show us.
One. How good is my running back as a receiver? Because if I'd rather have him running routes one-on-one against a linebacker, well, fuck having him block. I'll just have him run a route. Second thing, how good are my tight ends at blocking? Because if I have a nasty pass blocking tight end, I'll just block that dude. And then I'll have my running back run a pass route. Or I'll block both of them. Like I don't think it's a linear equation as, oh, if you're a great pass blocker, you're going to see the field. Dude, the modern game is all about mismatches, and one of the most meta ways of doing that, I posted a Sark clip on the Twitter with him saying
That's true.
this modern philosophy, dude. You want running backs to tear up defenses. That's what's happening nowadays. Why do you think Najee Harris and Etienne and Clyde Edwards-Helaire have been the top running backs off the board the past couple of years and the only first-round picks? Because they are good at catching the damn football.
But do you think? I don't think any of those guys have paid off at the. Well, we don't know with Najee and Etienne, but I'm willing to bet those guys aren't going to pay off at their price.
Not is not the point. I think the point is that offensive coordinators, like at least for the high-end fantasy running backs, I'm looking much more at the receiving ability of someone that's going to be fantasy relevant than if they can block or not. Because if you are a good enough player with the ball in your hands, it does not matter if you can block or not. It's an older thing. Like, okay, yeah, maybe for some offenses, but dude, I think it's such an overblown thing nowadays with smart modern offensive coaches.
Right, but especially in Miami for this case, Brian Flores is a very old school head coach. He's going to want
he doesn't do the offense.
I
guess
know,
Chan Gailey kind of was, but
and I agree. I think receiving ability for running backs is extremely important in the modern game, and it's one of those things that can take you from a mid-level running back to a top-tier level running back in terms of fantasy production, as in PPR leagues especially. So, like, obviously it's something you look at, but in terms of a guy like Myles Gaskin, where he's good, he's definitely better than Malcolm Brown in terms of receiving, but he's not a guy that's scaring anybody, I don't think.
I think he's a good player. Okay, I'm just going to let's move on here. My final take, pass blocking for running backs only matters if you are incredibly trash. You know, if you're just terrible, then yeah. If you literally can't block, if you're Eno Benjamin, yeah, you're fucked. But aside from that, you could probably be developed, especially if you have size. Any other stock downers? Oh, dude, we have to talk about this. Travis Kelce shaved his beard, yes, and the dude looks ancient. He looks so washed now.
I was shook.
Pull it up on the Twitch stream or on YouTube, so our YouTube people can look like that.
I don't know what happened. He went from like one of the guys that like just dressed well, always looked good with that beard, and then he shaved his beard, and all of a sudden he looks like a washed up dad. I don't know what happened to the guy. Crazy.
Okay, so this is here's a if you know what Travis Kelce looks like, here's the picture for the ones on the YouTube, right? Get out of here, Lounis. He looks so much. This is him. This is him like during the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that
beard makes him look so much younger. Look at the difference. Holy smokes, he's aged 9 years. He's aged an entire career. Yeah, I am heavily fading Travis Kelce.
I don't know. It's not changing my mind on him. I still had him behind Kittle for this year, to be fair.
All right, but let's just take Travis Kelce. We can move on to the last segment of the day. The value of positions, but tight end. The cheeky little tight end. So I wanted to start this one off with like another question that I did with the value of positions running back, but one that's not necessarily as like self-explanatory as rhetorical. How do you value top tight ends compared to other top positions, quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs? Because I think that tight ends it's a really wacky position because you have both longevity, but you have a maturation period, a little marination that's needed for a lot of the top tight ends. They a lot of times do not break out in their first year, and the ones that do, there's not really a huge correlation between the ones that have early success and having continued success. And they also have the cliff of the running backs. So it's like, how the hell do you navigate this compared to the other positions, which seem to be a little bit more straightforward?
we're in a weird time where most of those top elite tight ends are aging out. So you have the likes of Travis Kelce and George Kittle and Darren Waller, who are all, I think the youngest of them is Kittle, and he's like 27.
Yeah, Kittle's 27.
Yeah. So, and you know, you just talked about they have that kind of cliff like the running backs where it's not much longer, 2-3 years tops for these guys until that cliff is likely there. You can make the argument for Waller, he's more wide receiver, yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, more likely than not, the cliff is coming for these guys. Now, it's a weird time then where you also have that shiny unicorn in Kyle Pitts and where he gets valued next to these guys too. Because like you said as well, it takes a little while for those tight ends to break out typically too. And so are you going to price him around where he's going with established wide receivers and established running backs and, middle of the pack quarterbacks? Like, it is such a difficult position to kind of navigate. And with that, I find myself avoiding these top guys. I'm avoiding the likes of Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, and George Kittle. I'll let other people pick them up in those, 4th, 5th rounds whenever they're going. Kelsey's probably still even going higher.
More like 3rd round. Kelce,
yeah.
I've seen go 2nd round still.
Yeah. So they're going like a little too high for me, where I'd rather have those established guys. I mean, Pitts is the only one, but even Pitts I sometimes struggle with how highly he's being valued. I'm kind of rambling here, but I'll cut it off with if Pitts pans out and you're buying Pitts where you're buying him, you're buying a cheat code for the next 7 years conservatively, where you're not going to find that kind of value anywhere. You're not going to get that kind of value anywhere else where it's just a game-breaking kind of talent. Now, I don't know what the odds are of him panning out, but if you could get that, there's that big but. If you could get that kind of cheat code, you're getting him for super cheap.
So I want to start it in the startup draft, kind of like you said. So JT, you think that the 3rd round is too early for the top tight ends? I think that if you really think I like George Kittle, I think George Kittle's phenomenal, and for the next at least 3 years, he's going to be a great player. Kyle Pitts too. Darren Waller, I think even as well. Kelce, not so much necessarily, but he's still a good player for this year. All 3 of those guys, I am down to draft in the 3rd round. If I really think that they can give me that huge competitive advantage, and especially in a tight end premium league where it's they're just going to be a class and above, go ahead, give it to me every time. I think that's good value.
Yeah, I mean, I think Frank touched on something that I want to point out is the competitive advantage of the tight end position. Because of how scarce the position is in general, the top guys provide you with such an advantage over your opponent. Just because, we pointed out, and we play, tight end premium, so we get an extra half point for all tight end receptions, stuff like that. Travis Kelce would have been wide receiver number 1. Darren Waller would have been wide receiver number 3. While guys are putting out there the likes of Jonnu Smith.
Yeah.
And
another one, Jake, for you is in 2019. Remember how Michael Thomas broke the receptions record? George Kittle in our tight end premium settings that you mentioned would have had more reception points than the dude who broke the single season receptions record.
Right. It's just, it provides such an advantage because, everyone has to start a tight end in most formats, I would say. So the fact that your tight end is being compared to the likes of the top end wide receivers compared to a guy that would probably be at best a wide receiver 3, if a flex play at best, if he was, categorized as a wide receiver, just provides a huge advantage. And I think paying up to get one of these guys, I understand in the startup draft, it's a little steep to get, those guys in the 3rd round. I think it's a lot, like JC said. But in terms of Kyle Pitts, taking him at 102, 103 in a rookie draft, I'm smashing it. And I know that we all just think Kyle Pitts is, a unicorn and there's no chance. I don't think Kyle Pitts, if we're talking redraft, I think Kyle Pitts should probably be around tight end 7, tight end 8, just because the best tight end season ever for a rookie was Evan Ingram in 17, whatever, 20, whatever he was drafted. So, like, that's what I'm saying. He would have to break every single tight end record, touchdowns, receptions, receiving yards. He would have to break every one. And I'm not saying he's not capable because I think he's that good of a prospect. But I'm just saying he would have to shatter all of those records to meet his redraft price right now. And in terms of Dynasty, I do think eventually he will get there. But like Frank said, there's a, kind of a learning curve to the tight end position in the NFL that's, not like any other position. Running backs come in, it's the same thing. They hand the ball if you have the vision, you'll get the yards. Receivers, if you run your route, you get open, you get the yards. But tight end, you have to learn to block and you have to learn to play the NFL game because it's a little different than college and they're used differently than they are in college. So you have to learn the game.
Yeah.
And it's more of a learning curve than any other position. And I think a lot of people tend to forget that. And
we want to know why.
Because they want the production right away. That's what they want, and they don't see it.
Well, why it's a learning curve is that you have to split your time between the running room with the run game coordinator and the passing room with the pass game coordinator. You have to know all the blocking schemes. That's one of the main reasons why the first dudes that are looked at on the offensive side of the ball for offensive coordinators and head coaches are the quarterback coaches. Second, tight ends.
Now, I did a thing while you guys were talking about that. I started my own little Superflex tight end premium mock draft while you guys were talking. And the likes of so I got my results. Now this is obviously an ADP, but it gives you a rough idea. George Kittle went first at 208. Kelsey went 211. Pitts went 308. Darren Waller went 309. Now
308 for Pitts in a dynasty.
But think about
premium is
I really like Pitts, and Pitts would probably be the only one I'm considering taking. But the guys still on the board are, the J.K. Dobbins, DJ Moore, Justin Fields, Terry McLaurin, Antonio Gibson, Stafford.
Yeah, damn, man.
There's a lot of good names.
It is tough. It feels really bad to spend that high of a pick on a tight end.
Yeah,
right. But the competitive, like I said, the competitive advantage, the difference between, let's say you take Pitts at 308 and you kind of turn around and now your quarterback is Matt Stafford instead of, Russell Wilson. It doesn't feel good, but the points difference.
Kyle Pitts might be a little different though.
Kyle Pitts is the only one out of those four. He's such an anomaly to those other three guys of the Kelsey, Waller, and Kittle.
I mean, that's just because of age.
So
but that's the thing is,
dude.
do you think he hits this? When do you think he hits this potential? Do you think he is hitting that immediately out of the gate?
I'm of the minority opinion where I do think Kyle Pitts will break out this year and will beat Evan Ingram's record.
If you treat him as a wide receiver, he's got a 42% chance of breaking out, probably higher if you just look at top 5 or top 10 drafts.
I believe in that because he can
you
line
didn't
up
draft
at receiver.
Number 4 to sit around and be your average motherfucking tight end.
He can line up at receiver.
Yeah. Right. You said that about TJ Hawkinson, who was taken 10th overall or whatever it was.
They're different players.
Think about the value difference between pick 4 and pick 9 or 10, wherever Hawkinson was picked.
That you have to give up 2 firsts.
That is a big value.
49ers had to give up 2 firsts to move that.
To a certain extent. Yeah. It is comparable, but it's not. And TJ Hawkinson, you're going to tell me that TJ Hawkinson's a bust right now? I think TJ Hawkinson is a prime position to really break out this year.
I mean, he is.
But okay, let's stop arguing about the specific tight ends. I kind of want us to touch more on how we handle this in startup drafts because I want to come out and say I've had very mixed results with tight ends in dynasty leagues. Most leagues, I think I do a pretty good job.
Self-proclaimed tight end guy too, eh?
Okay, well here's the thing, right? I have always operated with the strategy with very mixed results of I'm just going to write down the value of tight ends that I like, right? And I'm just going to try and find the one dude that I can trade into for a very fair price or I can pick around after the ADP. So some examples of that in our league, it was George Kittle and Dallas Goedert, which for their ADPs really panned out. And then I picked up Mark Andrews the next year, okay, tight end city, right? But in another league, we ended up taking, I think it was Hunter Henry and some other bull crap, and we've been trying to find a tight end for a while now. In another league, it's okay, Noah Fant. And then I think Noah Fant's still a good player, but he's not a reliable tight end for a competing team. And it was a weak spot on a team that eventually lost the championship. And it's you can sit around like I have in the 7th, 8th, 9th rounds, and then even above, and take a shot at a high upside tight end you like. And yeah, 1 out of every 4 drafts, you may nail a George Kittle, but I don't know. Like, maybe I'm going to start being the guy that shells up and starts taking tight ends early in drafts.
I think it's worth it because I think, like we've said when we talked about running backs earlier, you can find some value plays at running backs. I don't think you can really find value plays at tight ends. You either have the top guys or you have the wasteland. And when you get stuck with the wasteland, it's kind of hard to dig yourself out unless you invest into it. You got to put, a high-end pick into a Kyle Pitts, a high-end pick into a TJ Hawkinson, and really invest in it to get a guy that you think is going to be that tight end for you.
There's a lot of guys I think are getting high picks wasted on them this year. Sorry, you're going to feel targeted real quick, Jake. But like Irv Smith Jr., Adam Troutman, these feel like guys.
Just name my tight ends, why don't you?
I said you're gonna feel targeted.
We talked about Kelsey. Don't feel too bad.
We talked about Kelsey. Now you're bringing up Irv Smith and Troutman. You just might as well name my whole tight end room.
I don't like your tight end room. But to be fair, I think these are the guys that like people then go turn around and say like this is why it's not worth like investing on these young tight ends. And I just think those aren't the young tight ends that you want to invest in.
Well, the other thing too, though, is
I didn't put a lot. Just to
no, yeah, you did. No, you did.
I didn't put a lot. I spent pick 310 on Irv Smith 2 years ago, and 309.
And those were fine in the draft. Yeah, those were
and
totally fine in the draft.
309 on Troutman last year. Like I didn't put high capital into these
and
guys.
they've only gone up since, which is good. But I think now would be the time to sell them if you could. I don't know if you're able to. But
we'll see.
I've got a few offers, and then Frank came out here and just played the dirty rat card on me. Snag my trade.
One thing that has to be said about Jake's tight ends, and the fact that I found great value in tight ends. I've never really taken a tight end all that high, and I've had fantastic tight ends. Is that if you just took every single draft a tight end in that 3rd or late 2nd or early 4th that was a good athlete that had at least above average production. You didn't have to shoot in the 1st round for the O.J. Howards or Hawkinsons or Fence or whatever. You could have snagged some pretty damn decent tight ends.
Do you know what Troutman and Irv Smith's consensus ranking right now is on Keep Trade Cut? Just off the top of your head.
12 and 13.
Irv Smith is 8, Troutman 10.
Yeah, you hit it on the head. It's not.
No way.
Irv Smith, not exactly. Irv Smith is 9 and Troutman's 11. So you were one spot off on each of them. But I picked 3rd round, drafted these guys in the 3rd round. I think that's something you can do. Is very easily take the guys that just have high upside. Situation might not be great. Let them develop for, like I said, tight ends have that time to develop. You give them 2 years each, and now look, Irv Smith is tight end 9 in Dynasty consensus. Like it's absolutely
on
insane.
That taxi, baby. Let him marinate.
Who's the guy this year? Trey McKay, Brevin Jordan,
Freiermuth,
Hunter Long. Well, Freiermuth's not that late.
Freiermuth's not
late
exactly
second.
That
I
late.
think is a great pick to land Freiermuth. I've been on Freiermuth for a while, so I think that if you're a team that has a late 2nd round pick, maybe you have 2, and you need a taxi squad shove, like. I liked Cole Kmet last year. Mainly, I wasn't a huge Cole Kmet guy, but the fact of the matter is I picked him up in the late 3rd in like 2 leagues. Fine, I'll shove him on the taxi for 2 years and see if I can get something. I think it's worth the upside, especially for an early to mid 2nd round pick where he was in the draft. On a team that's not getting some hype. At least I'll take it.
Yeah, you said who's that guy this year? I think a lot. There's a bunch of them that I think have that potential. You talk about Noah Gray is in Cincinnati or Kansas City, with aging Travis Kelce. He was an athletic tight end for Duke. You got Brevin Jordan in Houston. You got Hunter Long, Jacob Harris, I think Jacob Harris and Kylan Granson are my 2 favorites. I know I'm hyping up.
But you can just look at the past couple of years, though, too. Like every single year, there's a handful of. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to turn into elite guys, but if you take enough shots and enough digs, eventually, if you do that for 4 or 5 draft classes, investing not crazy 3rd round picks, you can pick up 3rd round picks if you really need to. All right, they're not hard to come by. And you just took a shot every year on the tight end that's going around there. I feel like you're bound to hit eventually on someone that's top 8, top 9. And maybe that eventually ends up in a top end guy. Let's move off start. So we've kind of already moved off startup.
Yeah, we've been on. Sorry.
But all right, but like post startup, how do you deal? Like, let's just say you whiffed in the startup. You did what I did in that one league. You picked up a Hunter Henry or whatever, and maybe
bad.
a Hayden Hurst, and you just whiffed. And
Feels
you're saying,
bad.
well, shit, I got a pretty decent team, especially because the startup, I didn't draft a tight end early. I was able to pick up that extra Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But now I got to go pick up a tight end. Like we saw in our league, the price for George Kittle was just 2 firsts and a second, I'm pretty sure, which is, even as just George Kittle owner, that's pretty steep.
That's really, I said it was steep, and you guys thought it was spot on. I thought it was a little steep, but what do I know?
I mean, the thing is, though, is that, like, you got to get that dude to budge because a lot of people have Kittle as the TE1. And I mean, I imagine you got to shell up 2 firsts to go out there and get your average Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
In a tight end premium league, at least. Like, we're assuming tight end premium here, by the way. So, like, if you whiffed on the tight ends, are you just going to continue bargain buying, or are you going to just try and shell out multiple first-round picks and get that top-end dude?
I don't know if I'm shelling out multiple first-round picks because I think that kind of handicaps me moving forward in terms of, available, trade assets and just keeping your team overall young and stuff for a tight end here. But I'm definitely willing to shell out one and probably some prospects that people are high on. Like if you turned around last year and you said right after the rookie draft, you go, okay, I want a top tight end. And you said, I'll give you Rager and a first-round pick and a second-round pick. I think there would be a lot of teams that would turn around and go, yeah, okay, I like that. Or I think you could do the same thing this year with the guys like, Elijah Moore and Rondale Moore and a first and a second. And I think you'd get a really, really good tight end. And then obviously
you're right.
You could turn around and, it could bite you in the ass, and Rondale Moore could be, top tier wide receiver, but you could also get, the Jalen Raiders, and you gave up nothing almost. You gave up 1 first-round pick for an absolute, position advantage.
You want to know why you're right, Jake? Is that I have been an owner of Mark Andrews. I've probably said it like 4 times this episode. I was an owner of Mark Andrews ever since he came in the league. What, 3 years? 2 years?
Yeah, 3. I think it's 3 or 4, something like that.
He's entering his 4th, I'm pretty sure.
And I mean, he did pretty well early on. He's always been like a pretty damn good tight end. But and then now this year is the year he's either going to take the leap to be that stud or he's not. But regardless,
he's not. But anyways.
When I tried to trade him last year during the rookie draft, I could not get like a top half of the draft first-round pick, and I'm not even sure I could get pick 11, like in that draft. I don't think I could. And I was trying to shop him around the time. I got no offers. I was offering him out just for any first, couldn't get it. But then all of a sudden, when this season, right before the season starts, everyone thinks they're going to compete. They're trying to win the league before the season starts. You could trade Mark Andrews for a first, right? So I think you're right in that once you hit this post-draft or at draft period and you need a tight end, you can trade your first-round pick and pick up a pretty damn elite tight end. Not the tippy top guys, but JT, you did it with Noah Fant. You could do it with Mark Andrews. You could do it with maybe TJ Hawkinson, probably league dependent. I don't really think so. You may have to shell up a little bit more than just that first. But regardless, there is a good, talented tight end that you can pick up for your first-round pick and maybe even get a little bit on top. You never know.
No offense, my guy that I'd go out and buy. Not just saying that because I did it, but my theory behind it is, yeah,
that's the play. We're writing that down. That's the rule.
He's that guy too, no offense, where it's, and Mark Andrews too to some extent, where they're on that offense that they're getting a lot of, crap about, where it's like with Mark Andrews, they're the lowest passing attack. No offense, it's you have a bunch of options and you're not going to be a great passing attack. Situation only stays that way for so long. Mm-hmm. At some point, it's going to change. It's just a question of, do I think both of them will? Probably not, but you got to take your chances at that point. And if it's just the price of a late first in a 2022 draft, I'm going to shoot my shot with those guys instead.
I think regardless, the lesson learned is that if you need a tight end, buy them during or immediately after your rookie draft. Actually, probably during.
During is almost
during or
always.
after, but with the young players. That's what we've determined.
Yes.
Because you were saying Rondale Moore or Elijah Moore, if you took him in the second round, And during training camp hype, you're right. You probably could have turned around and been like, "Yeah, I'll trade you Elijah Moore in a second, and you give me whatever." You could get a deal done. I don't know the deal off the top of my head, but you can get a deal done for a tight end with highly touted receiver draft picks.
I mean, I think you could even get the tippy top guys in terms of, maybe not Kyle Pitts just because of the age factor here, and people will be more hesitant to, trade him, especially because they just took him with the 103, 102, whatever it was. I think you could get a Waller who's 27, or you could get a Kittle who's 28 and 27, whatever it is. If you turned around and you said, I know you like both of these guys. Here's Elijah Moore, end of first round pick.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
If you give him Elijah Moore and a first round pick, and the guy is an Elijah Moore fan or a Jets fan, and you're playing on that homer bias, I think you could get one of these older guys. They'll be like, yeah, he's 27, he has 2 years left, and I'm getting a rookie receiver that I like, end of first round pick. I think you could work it. It may not be that deal straight up, but that could be the basis.
It could be around there. You're right.
Of what you work around, and maybe you add a third round pick, or you add a lower tier prospect that gets the deal done because they just like him. I think you could really buy some of these top tight ends for not too bad a value, especially with this training camp hype around a lot of the players that, went early to mid-second and then you got at a reasonable price, and you turn around and you're like, okay, well, now I just basically turned a first and a second into George Kittle, and you're like, okay, that's fine with me.
All right. The quick side tangent that I think we just stumbled on, and then we can wrap it up, is it seems like first half of the second round picks for the most part have only gained value since they've been drafted because of consensus.
Yeah, I mean, I think that always happens because those are guys that people are like, oh, they could go in the first round of rookie drafts, but they're sliding into the second, and then you go turn around in training camp and you're like, oh, Jalen Waddle's and Devontae Smith is injured already, so Elijah Moore's starting to look real nice.
Yeah,
Rashad Bateman's hurt. Elijah Moore's starting to look really nice. He's hurt though, and then Rondell Moore played really well. So there's a lot of guys that
Paris Marshall, Trey Sermon,
right? That were kind of borderline first round picks. And
don't tell anyone, but the hit rate after pick 7 is basically the same up until the middle of the second round.
Yeah, I know.
But that's
that's on the class, of course.
That's because people fall for the bad prospects. They take the baits of sorry, Frank, but your guy Mac Jones, Devontae Smith, Kadarius Toney will sneak up there, Michael Carter, all these guys who are bad hit rates in general are sneaking up into those early second rounders where it makes sense. The guys with the lower. Well, Najee Harris he's consensus 105, 106.
His hit rate is also high as a first round running back, but yeah.
No, it's not. He's a 23-year-old prospect. He was senior year running back.
You're gonna have Tinder chick
didn't produce
JT
a whole lot.
crawl
Yeah,
out of his hole.
I'll fight you, Jay. All right.
Crawl back in your Tinder hole, JT.
All right. So if we learned anything,
they're gonna require ID on Tinder soon. My catfishing days might be over.
Buy tight ends during the rookie draft or during rookie hype.
It's in the news, Jake. Look it up.
I don't care if it's in the news. Just the fact that you're my catfishing days are over.
Well, that was the headline too. It was over for catfishes. Tinder requires IDs. All right, good place to wrap it up. Season 2, episode 2 in the book. I don't know, but can we?
JT went off the rails on this one.
I think this was Lounis's best episode, if you guys ask me. Look at him.
I really don't know why you're so down on Kadarius Toney. He's really good. Just give him time to come back.
He's done nothing yet. Nothing.
I'll fight you, JT. Miles Sanders is about to be RB5.
I don't mind Miles Sanders. Not that high, though.
All right, we're out of here.
Episode 2 in the books. Thanks, everyone.